Hello everyone, welcome back to Skyrim. Right, you just had to make the cliche, didn't you? Right as I was recording. It's been a few days since I played again. Weather's been weird, it's put me in a weird sort of funk, but now weather's kind of cooled down to how I like it to be, and I guess now I'm ready to record and be somewhat functional. I mean, I know I definitely, again, this is going to be a running theme. There you go. I definitely forgot to do that. Now, we're going to go talk to the Jarl of Falkreath and tell him that we're not interested in his proposal. Actually, now I don't know. I mean, yeah, Isabel is still working hard by the forge. I guess we're heading in. It's about 4:55 in the afternoon or evening. Let's go. Let's at least talk to him. Get a sense of who he is before we
I
decide.
protect the Jarl, whoever that might be.
Well, good for you. This is actually looks pretty nice. I mean, I like the green stuff. It fits him well. The crown is a bit ridiculous, though. Reminds me of that one elf in The Hobbit that rides the rides the stag. I forgot his name.
Yes. What is it that you want?
Well, I got your letter. I'm C.L. Morick.
Ah, it's you. Yes, well, now we'll see if the stories about you are true.
What
There's
stories?
a group of bandits in my hold that I may have had a few discreet dealings with. The cut they were giving me was good at first, but now it's time to clean things up. Go and take care of it.
Really? Well, in that case, I don't think I can do that right now.
Disappointing?
Well, I'm not here to fulfill your expectations. I'm just here to get to know you, and just by our brief conversation, I think I know who you, or how you operate. Fine.
Come and see me again sometime. I might have some use for you.
No. This is not gonna work, obviously, Sophia. I don't serve bastards.
I'm the steward here. I serve under Jarl Siggeir and Jarl Dengir before him.
Honestly, I don't know how you stand the guy. Let me talk to you, actually.
Siggeir can sometimes act too quickly, but he does listen to Helvard and I.
I see. Well, why don't you tell me about your town? Why is your cemetery so large?
Many battles have been fought here over the centuries. Graves were dug and monuments built, and the town grew around these. In time, Falkreath came to be known as the Heroes' Graveyard. Many noble jarls and renowned warriors asked to be buried here. Falkreath's reputation has faded somewhat, but the graves remain, reminding us of the one inevitable truth of life.
How long have you been steward?
It was Dengir who made me a steward, long ago when he was young. When Dengir's health began to fail, young Siggeir was appointed Jarl in his stead. It was simpler just to keep me as steward. Siggeir has no interest in running his hold, and so leaves such matters to me. As for my part, I do my best to see that folk are treated fairly.
That's good. Actually admire you for that. Well, carry on.
May wisdom forever light your path.
Same to you. Well, really don't like that guy. I don't know how you stand him, but at least you're here. At least I know Falkreath is in relatively good hands anyway. Alright, Sophia, let's go. And I need to level up. Alright, so we are now level 12. I think Magica. It's good. So we have 1 point. Still can't put anything into destruction. I'm sure, yeah, nothing really in conjuration quite yet. You know, at first I'd actually planned to make this character an illusion and conjuration type character, but I just never found any use for illusion. I mean, I'm sure there's a way to play an illusion character. I just haven't. It just hasn't quite clicked with me yet. Oh yeah, that's right. I would say I said I would go with dexterity. I remember. Open sesame. Saving time and nervous glances, you fashion a key for each lock you trip, as well as a neat trick for liberating existing keys. Okay. And then we will be heading for nose for coin, and then greed. Huh. It's actually... Huh. Okay. Gold weight is negligible, and treasure hunter. I think I like those. Guess we'll be going down though. What is secrecy anyway? Misdirection, allowing cover. Ah, pick a lock and remain undetected in broad daylight. Well, that might be useful too, actually, for what we plan to do. Okay, that's pretty much it. 537. What else is there to do around here? No. Sightless pit. Where are these anyway? So one right here, one right there. So they're all in the north. And speak to Nuri again? Why? Why would I speak to him again? I don't have what he wants. Why? Really? Okay, well, let's go talk to Nuri again, then I guess.
Got something for just about everybody in here. Give a holler if you have any questions.
Hey, Nuri.
Well, hello.
Okay, well, let me at least look what you got for
Take a
sale.
look.
Alien bow. Wow, quite the impressive looking bow, actually. It does look pretty alien, actually, from what alien architecture I've seen. Interesting. Very interesting. Oh, and you got all these bowls and cups that I could decorate a house with. And what is this? Well, it's quite valuable, but it's not all that great. But it does look pretty nice. It's definitely a decorative piece. Okay. Plates, reference text. A bunch of these are interesting books, actually. Might be back to purchase them at a later date. Okay. Well, thanks again, Nuri. Well, I'll be back for sure next time with the things you need. Next time I come in here. So this goes on the back burner for now. So I have to go back to Riften. And yeah, we have those. Dawn card. Born. Oh yeah. So I guess we'll be heading towards Morthal tomorrow.
As if Skyrim didn't have enough outsiders. Now we've got mercenaries from Hammerfell strutting about.
I'm pretty sure I took care of that problem. I guess they're still around. Alright, well. Let's go into the inn. Maybe read one of these books that we have. Mystery of Talara. This might be a good book to read, actually. Oh man. Oh man. Oh, this is quite the story. Alright, well, I'll get down to it.
I can't believe we let provincials like you wander Skyrim.
Relax, man. Seriously. And
Mom says I'm getting a new mommy and daddy, so I'll have 2 of each now.
Talmor robes. You know, I didn't notice you
Can't
before.
believe we let provincials like you wander Skyrim.
Now I notice you. Oh, what are you doing?
What do you want?
Nari's funny. She tells everyone how handsome and pretty they are. Mom says she does it for tips.
Get out of here, young lady. Well, she doesn't notice me, this Talmor lady. Where did she go? Huh? Did she disappear? What? Huh. She gave us the slip.
I don't like it here. There's too many bugs.
Can I actually talk to you? No, apparently not. Okay. Okay. Huh. Interesting.
That Valga Venetia is a gossip and a troublemaker.
Quite a slippery one, that Talmor lady. Anyway, let's get down to reading by the fire.
Alive, will ya?
Yes, Mom.
A sad time.
What makes you say that?
You want a drink?
Well, sure, why not?
Depends. Are you thirsty? Hungry? Both?
Oh, honey brew mead. Please, no more honey brew mead. I'll take your Ember brand wine. Yeah. It's good. Nice bottle to drink while we read. There you go. Drinking it out of a mug. Okay. Well, while we sit down here and drink our wine. Mystery of Talara. Part 1. This is good. Excuse me. The year was 3rd Era 405. The occasion was the millennial celebration of the founding of the Breton kingdom of Camlorn. Every grand boulevard and narrow alley was strung with gold and purple banners, some plain, some marked with the heraldic symbols of the royal family, or the various principalities and dukedoms which were the vassals of the king. But before we continue, actually, sorry, it should be said that CL has read this book before, and he is quite fond of it. CL, the person, I've actually read it before too, but I don't quite remember it all. But I do remember it's interesting. Anyway, let's continue. Musicians played in the plazas great and small, and on every street corner was a new exotic entertainer. Redguard snake charmers, Khajiiti acrobats, magicians of genuine power, and those whose flamboyant skill was equally impressive, if largely illusion. The sight that drew most of the male citizens of Camlorn was the March of Beauty. 1,000 comely young women, brightly and provocatively dressed, danced their way down the long, wide main street of the city, from the temple of Sethiti to the royal palace. The menfolk jostled one another and craned their necks, picking their favorites. It was no secret that they were all prostitutes, and after the march and the flower festivals that evening, they would be available for more intimate business. Gaina attracted much of the attention with her tall, curvaceous figure, barely covered by strips of silk, and her curls of flaxen hair, speckled with flower petals. In her late 20s, she wasn't the youngest of the prostitutes, but she was certainly one of the most desirable. It was clear by her demeanor that she was used to the lascivious glances, though she was far from jaded at the sight of the city in splendor. Compared to the squalid quarter of Daggerfall, where she made her home, Camlorn at the height of celebration seemed so unreal. And yet, what was even stranger was how, at the same time, familiar it all looked, though she had never been there before. The king's daughter, Lady Gilia, rode out of the palace gates and immediately cursed her misfortune. She had completely forgotten about the March of Beauty. The streets were snarled and at a standstill. It would take hours to wait for the march to pass, and she had promised her old nurse Ramk a visit. Where is it? Ramke? Okay. A visit in her house south of the city. Gilia thought for a moment, picturing in her mind the arrangement of streets in the city, and devised a shortcut to avoid the main street and the march. For a few minutes she felt very clever as she wound her way through tight, curving side streets, but presently she came upon temporary structures, tents and theaters, set up for the celebration, and had to improvise a new path. In no time at all, she was lost in the city, where she had lived all but 5 years of her life. Peering down an alley, she saw the main avenue crowded with the March of Beauty, hoping that it was the tail end, and desirous not to be lost again. Lady Gilia guided her horse toward the festival. She did not see the snake charmer at the mouth of the alley, and when his pet hissed and spread its hood, her charge reared up in fear. The women in the parade gasped and surged back at the sight, but Lady Gilia quickly calmed her stallion down. She looked abashed at the spectacle she had caused. "My apologies, ladies," she said with a mock military salute. "It's all right, madam," said a blonde in silk. "We'll be out of your way in a moment." Gilia stared as the march passed her, looking at that whore had been like looking in a mirror. Oh man. The same age and height and hair and eyes and figure, almost exactly. The woman looked back at her, and it seemed as if she was thinking the same thing. And so Guyana, the old witches who sometimes came in to Daggerfall, had sometimes spoke of doppelgangers, spirits that assumed the guise of their victims and portended certain death. Yet the experience had not frightened her. It seemed only one more strangely familiar aspect of the alien city. Before the march had danced its way into the palace gates, she had all but forgotten the encounter. The prostitutes crushed into the courtyard as the king himself came to the balcony to greet them. At his side was his chief bodyguard, a battle mage by the look of him. As for the king himself, he was a handsome man of middle age, rather unremarkable, but Guyana was awed at the sight of him. A dream, perhaps. Yes, that was it. She could see him as she had dreamt of him, high above her as he was now, bending now to kiss her. Not a one of lust as she had experienced before, but one of small fondness. A dutiful kiss. I just need some water. Dear ladies, you have filled the streets of the great capital of Camlorn with your beauty, cried the king, forcing a silence on the giggling, murmuring assembly. He smiled proudly. His eyes met Guyana's, and he stopped shaken. For an eternity they stayed locked together before his highness recovered and continued his speech. Afterwards, while the women were all en route, back to their tents to change into their costumes for the evening, one of the older prostitutes approached Gaina. Did you see how the king looked at you? If you're smart, you'll be the new royal mistress before this celebration ends. I've seen looks of hunger before, and that wasn't one of them, laughed Gaina. I'd wager he thought I was someone else, like that lady who tried to run us over with her horse. She's probably his kin, and he thought she had dressed up like a courtesan and joined the March of Beauty. Can you imagine the scandal? When they arrived at the tent, they were greeted by a stocky, well-dressed young man with a bald pate and a commanding presence of authority. He introduced himself as Lord Strail, ambassador to the Emperor himself, and the chief patron. Oh, it was Strail who had hired them on the Emperor's behalf as a gift to the king and the kingdom of Camlorn. The March of Beauty is but a precursor to the flower festival tonight, he said. Unlike the king, he did not have to yell to be heard. His voice was loud and precise in its natural modulations. I expect each of you to perform well and justify the significant expense I've suffered bringing you all the way up here. Now hurry. You must be dressed and in position on the Cavilsteer Rock before the sun goes down. The ambassador needn't have worried. The women were all professionals, expert at getting dressed and undressed, with none of the time-consuming measures less promiscuous females required. His manservant, Norbuth, offered his assistance, but he had little to do. Their costumes were simplicity itself, soft, narrow sheets with a hole for their heads. Not even a belt was required, so the gowns were open at the sides, exposing the frame of their skin. So it was long before the sun had set that the prostitutes, turned dancers, were at Cavilsteer Rock. It was a great, wide promontory facing the sea, and for the occasion of the Festival of Flowers, a large circle of unlit torches and covered baskets had been arranged. As early as they were, a crowd of spectators had already arrived. The women gathered in the center of the circle and waited until it was time. Gaina watched the crowd as it grew, and was not surprised when she saw the lady from the march approaching, hand in hand with a very old, very white-haired woman. The old woman was distracted, pointing out islands out at sea. Oh wow, that's a weird sentence. The blonde lady seemed nervous, unsure of what to say. Gaina was used to dealing with uneasy clients and spoke first. Good to see you again, madam. I am Gaina of Daggerfall. I'm glad you bear me no ill will because of the horse, the lady laughed, somewhat relieved. I am Lady Gilia Reyes, daughter of the king. I always thought that daughters of kings were called princess, smiled Gaina. In Camlorn, only when they are heirs to the throne. I have a younger brother from my father's new wife, whom he favors, Gilia replied. She felt her head swim. It was madness speaking to a common prostitute, talking of family politics so intimately. Relative to that subject, I must ask you something very peculiar. Have you ever heard of the Princess Talara? Gaina thought for a moment. The name sounds somewhat familiar. Why would I have? I don't know. It was a name I just thought you might recognize, sighed Lady Gilia. Have you ever been to Camlorn before? If I did, it was when I was very young, said Gaina, and suddenly she felt it was her turn to be trusting. Something about the Lady Gilia's friendly and forthcoming manner touched her. To be honest, I don't remember anything at all of my childhood before I was 9 or 10. Perhaps I was here with my parents, whoever they were, when I was a little girl. I tell you, I think perhaps I was. I don't recall ever being here before, but everything I've seen, the city, you, the king himself, all seem like I've been here before, long ago. Lady Julia gasped and took a step back. She gripped the old woman who had been looking out to sea and murmuring by the hand. The elderly creature looked to Julia, surprised, and then turned to Gyna. Her ancient half-blind eyes sparkled with recognition, and she made a sound like a grunt of surprise. Gyna also jumped. If the king had seemed like something out of a half-forgotten dream, this woman was someone she knew, as clear and yet indistinct as a guardian spirit. "I apologize," stammered Lady Julia. "This is my childhood nursemaid, Ramke." "It's her!" the old woman cried, wide-eyed. She tried to run forward, arms outstretched, but Julia held her back. Gyna felt strangely naked and pulled her robe against her body. "No, you're wrong," Lady Julia whispered to Ramke, holding the old woman tightly. "The Princess Talara is dead. You know that. I shouldn't have brought you here. I'll take you back home." She turned back to Gyna with her eyes welling with tears. The entire royal family of Camlorn was assassinated over 20 years ago. My father was Duke of Oloin, okay, the king's brother, and so he inherited the crown. I'm sorry to bother you. Good night. Gyna gazed after Lady Julia and the old nurse as they disappeared into the crowd, but she had little time to consider all she had heard. The sun was setting, and it was time for the flower festival. 12 young men emerged from the darkness, wearing only loincloths and masks, and lit the torches. The moment the fire blazed, Gyna and all the rest of the dancers rushed to the baskets, pulling out blossoms and vines by the handful. At first, the women danced with one another, sprinkling petals to the wind. The crowd then joined in as the music swelled. It was a mad, beautiful chaos. Gyna leapt and swooned like a wild forest nymph. Then, without warning, she felt rough hands grip her from behind and push her. She was falling before she understood it. The moment the realization hit, she was closer to the bottom of the 100-foot-tall cliff than she was to the top. She flailed out her arms and grasped at the cliff wall. Her fingers raked against the stone and her flesh tore, but she found a grip and held it. For a moment she stayed there, breathing hard. Then she began to scream. The music and the festival were too loud up above. No one could hear her. She could scarcely hear herself. Below her, the surf crashed. Every bone in her body would snap if she fell. She closed her eyes and a vision came. The man was standing below her, a king of great wisdom, great compassion, looking up, smiling. A little girl, golden-haired, mischievous, her best friend and cousin, clung to the rock beside her. The secret to falling is making your body go limp. And with luck, you won't get hurt, the girl said. She nodded, remembering who she was. 8 years of darkness lifted. She released her grip and let herself fall like a leaf into the water below. Ooh, that was quite a bit to get through. Sorry about that. If that was a bit too long for you, go ahead and skip the video. Oh well, if you didn't want to hear me read, you would have skipped the video anyway. And we'll just say we took about an hour to read that then. Alright.
You want something from me?
No, not exactly.
A sad time.
Oh, well. I know you're watching me, like, read this whole time, Matthias, but I do remember you saying something about sad. And you're holding an invisible cup. Is this place always so gloomy?
Yes, and I couldn't tell you why. My wife and I think there's some dark magic at work. Or perhaps Arkay's influence is strong here, and he likes to keep it this way.
Who died? I'm sure a lot of people did, but who died?
Our daughter. Our little girl.
Oh.
She hadn't seen her 10th winter.
I see. Well, how did she die?
She was... He ripped her apart. Like a saber cat tears a deer.
Oh.
We barely found enough of her to bury.
Well, who did this?
Cindy. Came through as a laborer. Seemed like a decent man. He's stewing in the pit while we figure out what to do with him. If you've got the stomach to look at him. What could drive a man to do something like this?
Well, you know what? I don't think I'll be talking to Sinding, as he had the power to rip up a little girl, like a saber cat did. That sounds like bad jujus. Why does the town have such a large cemetery?
The cemetery is ancient. It's been here longer than the town. I'm no scholar, but I know that a lot of battles have been fought here over the course of history. After each battle, more dead were buried and the graveyard got bigger. I heard it's now the biggest graveyard in Skyrim.
I see. Well, good luck to you, Matthews. I'm sorry about your daughter.
I just don't understand what kind of man does that.
Neither do I. Neither do I. Yeah, keep on sipping the wine. This one's for you. Oh, great.
Be quick about it.
Almore, lady. I'm just enjoying my wine. How are you?
If it's a duel you seek, stranger, then I suggest you leave.
Definitely not.
I am not here to fulfill your desire for pain, or free you from your wretched existence. At least, not today.
Well, actually, I just wanted to talk. Surprised you don't recognize me.
Ah, yes, and what, pray tell, do you wish to converse about, Politics, religion, my two favorite subjects. Perhaps you wish to discuss both. How delightful.
We could start with something simple, like a name, because obviously you haven't tried to kill me yet.
But why bother with the foreplay? You seek vengeance for your loved ones, that's why you want to talk. That's why everyone wants to talk.
You're right in a way.
Well, you are too late. I am no longer a Thalmor. The clothes are just that. Clothes. I will not discard a perfectly adequate robe.
Fair enough. If you're no longer with a Thalmor, that explains why you're alone.
Interesting. I was quite certain this conversation would become gradually more belligerent, not less. Is it possible that there is one individual in this bullnetch of a province that is capable of reason?
Well, I'm not exactly from this province. Why are you at odds with the Thalmor?
It is a rather simple matter. I disobeyed a direct order from my superior.
What order is that exactly?
I was stationed in Markarth with 2 others. We were investigating a family that kept abnormal hours, staying up well past midnight. Unfortunately, myself and one of the other justiciars got into an argument over the children. The fool thought they were innocent.
Yeah, you should show more compassion. These are children you speak of.
They were future rebels. The moment we arrested their parents, they would forever despise us. The wisest course was to execute them. The issue was made irrelevant, however, when the entire family was found murdered.
And who murdered the family?
That is insignificant. The family was dead, and no longer worshipped Talos. Moreover, by letting a murderer run amok, we prevented the family from becoming martyrs. There was just one problem.
Alright, what was the problem?
Everyone assumed I was the murderer. It didn't help that I've been a rather vocal proponent of mass execution. So we decided it was best to use this perception to our advantage. Now, I never confessed to the crime, but I was stripped of my rank and exiled. This gave the perception that justice was served.
And who do you suspect murdered the family?
The only thing I know is the person was quite efficient and extremely disturbed. The rest would be mere speculation.
Did dismissing you have any noticeable effects?
Dwemer estimated that Talos worship would decrease by 1/3 in the wake of the murders. I don't know if that's true, but I wouldn't doubt his calculation.
What can you tell me about the men you've dueled?
There's nothing to tell. They act brave and fight poorly. The last one who challenged me was too busy rattling off the names of the relatives I had supposedly extinguished to even bother raising his shield. I think he was fumbling through what must have been a small army of second cousins when I set his weapon on fire.
This man wanted vengeance against the Thalmor?
Yes, and this is after I told him I was no longer a justiciar. But he was a rather stubborn Nord.
Why come to Falkreath then?
It is a temporary escape. I do not plan on remaining in this hovel of a kingdom beyond the next season. My plan is to return to the Somerset Isle after doing a little sightseeing.
Yeah. That seems a little contradictory.
Just because this land as a whole is irredeemable does not mean there are not the occasional sparkles of beauty. In fact, the squalor works to its advantage.
Is that right? How so?
In the Somerset Isle, even the dirt has a place in the pantheon of wonder. Here, there are no aesthetics to compete with.
And what do the townsfolk think of you?
They are tolerant because they are afraid. As for the Jarl, it matters not whether Sidgeir or Dengir is in charge.
Why is that?
Because when two buffoons of equally damaged minds vie for a throne, the reasonable citizens lose interest in the process. As such, more voice is given to the fools. And with fools in charge, the law becomes meaningless.
I think
Here, power makes the rules.
I have to agree with that, actually. Power. By your own admission, the townfolk have the power to harm you.
They are not organized. There are only the occasional challenges, brought forth by those emboldened by drink. I usually deflect their taunts and tell them to return in the morning when they have sobered. None ever do.
Okay. Well, since you're not a Thalmor, I guess there's no reason really to kill you. Is there any chance you'll be reinstated? Just for the off chance that I might be able to do that?
Of course. The Thalmor are not the Empire. We do not share their frothing obsession with bureaucracy.
How are the Thalmor different than the Empire?
Talk to them and you'll see. Find a soldier and ask him to file a report. Then watch as his mouth becomes a pond of saliva. Although,
Okay.
I suggest you don a helmet in advance. One of those dwarven ones, lest his response shower your cheek.
That's actually true. One must maintain a guise of admiration for the fools he dupes.
You sound like a diplomat I once knew. He thinks we can win this war with words. But Hammerfell is proof that some fools will never yield. And when this war resumes, I will rejoin my brethren.
The age of aggression is just about done.
And, well, you'll have to go through me first.
Exactly. And that is the part that those who seek diplomatic strategies will never understand. That you are willing to be run through.
Fair enough. Well, he doesn't exactly like her, CL. CL doesn't exactly like Geraldith. But, I mean,
just dice.
if they are, you know, if say he was a Thalmor and he was a part of the war, he would see things pretty similar to she would. Like, instead of arresting the children's parents, why not just have them all executed? I mean, it does sound pretty bad, but I mean, you know, if you're at war, it is pretty terrible to kill children. I'm not advocating that, but yeah, I mean, CL is a little bit of a bastard like that. That's why he's a little bit of an anti-hero, but I mean, that's what CL would do. Okay. And Isabel is here. Perfect. I don't even have to get off this chair. Hello, Isabel.
Some say weather in Skyrim is cold.
Oh, I hate that.
Work in the forge is enough to warm any man's bones.
Well, Isabel, glad you came.
Why, were you worried I'd stand you up? Not likely. The locals call me the town greeter. I never pass on a chance to talk to a fresh face.
Okay.
So I'm here. We can get to know each other first and our drinks second. But the other way is fine too.
Well, I've already been drinking, actually. You want to share Everbrand wine? Okay. Well, you mentioned you were from Kvatch.
That's right. I was born there after the Great War. A lot of children were, once everyone knew we'd have peace. As you can imagine, it's a city that reveres its heroes, none more so than the hero of Kvatch, whose statue stands in the castle courtyard.
Huh.
I remember when the other kids played hide and seek. We used it as a starting point. But I just stayed there the whole time, marveling at it. The hero of Kvatch was my idol, but my mother was always quick to remind me that no hero does it alone. That's how I was hooked into the blacksmith trade. I wanted to be the next hero's shield. I wanted to be their armor and their sword.
That sounds almost romantic, like a forge wife and her warriors. But wait, what? Oh, that and her warrior spouse.
I admit, I had a fantasy or two about the hero of Kvatch, and part of me used to dream of being the wife of a great hero.
Oh.
That's why I'm in Skyrim. With the war and the talk of dragons, maybe I'll meet the great legend right here in Falkreath. Maybe that might be you.
Ah. Is that an invitation? You're adorable, Isabel. I want to hear about your travels across Skyrim.
Well, I got my start in Solitude. I wanted to forge arms for all the brave legionnaires fighting in Skyrim. I got off the docks with nothing but a sack over my shoulder. I never told Baron who my family was. I didn't want to colour his perception of me, so I said I was a traveller and asked if he needed an apprentice. He said he already had one.
How did you train if you weren't his apprentice?
He let me work the forge when it was free. At first he never said a word, but pretty soon he couldn't help but dole out advice. He'd say something like, "Those dart wings you call arms can't shape steel. Put your hips into it." I forget how hot the forge is back home. The metal there's a lot easier to shape. But with Baron's help, I learned to smith the Nord way.
What else did Baron do for you?
Eventually, he thought enough of me that I should get a proper master. He sent a letter to Whiterun, and I couldn't contain my excitement. Then I met Adrienne. I recall looking at her modest setup, and with a straight face telling her how impressive the Skyforge was.
Yeah, it's not like the actual Skyforge would stand out or anything.
Aye, Adrienne said as much. She pointed up to that great eagle and said, "Child, if this is the Skyforge, what in oblivion is that thing?" I think that's when the ale spit out of Wilbur's nose.
Well, obviously she gave me hints, you know, in that previous question I asked, so no, they're not together. That's all the questions I have.
Alright, now it's my turn. So what's it like being an adventurer? It must be exciting to wander Skyrim, never knowing what tomorrow will bring.
Oh, that happens to be adventuring. Not exactly. Adventuring isn't... Well, I mean, I do have a bit money now, but that's... It's not the most profitable thing. Quiet times coming to new towns. I prefer the quiet times, coming to new towns and meeting new people.
Really? That's not what I expected. But it must get rather lonely out there on the road. When I forge, I think of all the spear maidens and shield brothers, braving the snowstorms with nothing but their armor to keep them company.
Well, I'd be honored to have you by my side, even if it's just a shield.
And I too would be honored to protect you, even as you protect us all.
Really?
The truth is, I've always dreamed of someone like you coming into town, righting wrongs, helping the townsfolk, and maybe falling in love with the blacksmith's apprentice.
Well.
I'd forge your weapons and armor, and they would keep you company on the lonely road. And when you come home, I'd hammer out any dent, sharpen every edge, so your weapons and our love would be burning you.
I barely know you. I mean, we've probably spent a grand total of 5 minutes talking to each other. But that sounds alright. I like that.
Our story practically writes itself. All that's left is for you to save the town. No, but really, I have a good feeling about you. You can do a lot of good around here.
Alright.
Maybe then, when you come by the forge, I'll have something worthy of you. But for now, it's getting late, and I have a long day ahead of me. Until next time.
Right, and until next time.
Need something?
I can't believe we let provincials
I saw
like
something
you wander
interesting
Skyrim.
here earlier. Yeah, this is gonna be an episode of just me talking to people and not really doing all that much. Sorry if you don't enjoy that. Skip the episode.
Fresh news
If you don't
from
like
everywhere.
that.
Read the Black Horse.
Yeah, here. Argonian. Hey.
Yes?
I just thought you were interesting. I'm wondering why you were in town. But alright. The Nacho and
These
Koost.
graves hold the sons and daughters of Falkreath.
Alright.
Falka's a nice woman, but her constant gossiping is a bad influence on Henrietta.
Are you that little girl's mother? Ugh, God. Are you alright?
That's a question I've asked myself for weeks now. Am I alright? Will she be alright? Was it wrong to come here?
Why? What's wrong?
I'm sick. I mean, it would be fine if it was just a cough, but, well, my body hurts so much I can barely walk. And those are the good days.
Have you considered seeing the priestess in Whiterun?
I've already tried. I'd heard that Danica Spring is the most powerful healer in all of Skyrim, but she couldn't help me. I know now it's my destiny to die. That's why Archery guided us here.
Oh man. That's a little heavy. But it sounds like you've given up.
Not at all. I took my daughter and journeyed to Skyrim in hopes of finding a cure. Yet, not even a priestess of Kinnereth can heal what ails me. I'm afraid now that we've come to Falkreath, I won't live much longer. I can only thank the Divines for guiding us this far, and for showing my faith was not in vain.
You can't be sure it's the God's will. You should fight it to the very end.
Oh, I know. My faith wasn't always as strong as it is now. In fact, I almost gave up on the Divines altogether.
So I'm guessing the young girl who runs around here is your daughter.
Henrietta, my baby girl. Bright, talented, and just enough of her father's courage to be brave without being fearless. She complains a lot too, but I forgive her.
She must get that from her mother.
Which part?
Oh, ho, 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 okay. Uh, oh, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Is she gonna take this the wrong way? I really hope she doesn't.
I think I've earned the right.
I think you have. What happened to her father?
My husband passed away not too long ago. She reminds me so much of him. If she ever asked me what he was like, I would have told her to just look in the mirror.
Tell me about your husband.
He was a gallant man, and my best friend. Some would say we knew each other better than we knew ourselves.
Wait, what?
When the Great War began, he was one of the first in our town to enlist in the Imperial Army. He despised the Thalmor, and so did I. When the White Gold Concordat was signed, he defected from the Legion to join the Red Guard forces as they pushed the elves back to Somerset Isle. I supported him in his decision. I told him to go to Ghislaine, where the army needed soldiers most. That's where he met a girl in a small town by the southern peninsula.
It was probably a moment of weakness.
He said the same. He told me it meant nothing, but it changed everything. He betrayed my trust, and the vow he made before Mara. But, Mara, forgive me, I still loved him. That was the problem. But I also knew I couldn't stay in Hammerfell any longer.
Why couldn't you stay in Hammerfell?
There were too many memories.
I understand.
I couldn't look at the desert sands without thinking about the war. And I couldn't think about the war without thinking about that girl. So we moved back to Cyrodiil, to Bruma, a place without sands or oceans.
What happened after you moved to Bruma?
Well, things finally began to slow down. It took some time to patch our relationship back together, but we made it work for 20 years. And in the meantime, I had Henrietta.
What happened to your husband? How'd he die?
An alchemist told him about a magical plant that grows only in the damp forests of Valenwood. As a base agent, it could make a potion strong enough to cure any disease. Whether he found it or not, he promised to come back in a month's time for Henrietta's birthday. He never did.
Oh, man, should I comfort her? Because, I mean, I don't know what to say. That's no. See, I would have said maybe the first part, but the second part was like, no, definitely not.
It was a foolish thing. A romantic thing, but the two are often one and the same. What did he think would happen to Henrietta if he never came back? If not for the guidance of the Divines, I shudder to think of the consequences.
Are you staying in Falkreath?
Yes, I plan to stay here with my daughter until Archery bid me leave. I've already arranged for a plot of land, away from the trees, where the stone faces east.
Sounds like a wonderful spot.
Thank you. It's funny, when they told me about the grand cemetery at Falkreath, I was so worried it might be too large. I feared Henrietta wouldn't be able to find my headstone. But when we got here, I was relieved. The graveyard is so cozy, and the priest is a kind man.
You sound ready.
I am. I was afraid to die before, not knowing what would become of my daughter. I thought she would end up lost and alone, a child few people noticed and nobody wanted. Now my heart is filled with more trivial concerns, and I often forget how lucky I am to have them.
What sort of concerns do you have?
I am worried she'll forget me. She's just a child, and the memories she has now will soon be replaced. I know when she's older, she'll remember Indara as her real mother.
Indara?
It's wrong to think so, but it almost makes me jealous. I just want to be a part of her life, even when I'm gone.
That's pretty damn sad. Is there anything you can do to help her remember?
Well, these last few days I've tried to tell her all the little things. The stuff she won't understand until she's older. How to brush her hair, how to tell when a man lies. The perfect recipe for apple cabbage soup.
Oh yeah, I know that.
I thought if I showed her all the little things, the big things would speak for themselves. She wouldn't have to wonder how much I loved her. Yet, when I talk to her now, all my words float by like dandelion clocks on the wind.
You could write a letter to her future self.
By the divines. Why didn't I think of that? That's a wonderful idea. Thank you, stranger.
No problem. Glad to help.
I think Runil has a quill and paper he keeps for his journal. I'm gonna get started right away. And if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a small favor. I know she'll be in good hands with Indara and Matthews, but if you could look in on her from time to time, make sure everything's all right, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, when I'm in town, I mean, I'm not gonna be in Falkreath all too often, unless, well, yeah, sure, not a problem. I'll look in on her.
Truly, the divines must have sent you to answer my prayers. Thank you again, so much.
Yeah, no problem. Oh man, just guilt trips. Guilt trips.
Kust is responsible for the cemetery here.
Right.
I take care of the shrine.
I'd like a room now.
Welcome to Dead Man's Drink.
That's not exactly what I needed right now.